Hey, what's good? Political parties are always changing their positions on how to run the country. This video from Vox will explain the history of the Democratic Party, from white supremacy to Barack Obama. I'm going to keep working on this animation. Before we get into it, remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get some clothes that I think would look good on you. Let's go. From white supremacy to Barack Obama, the history of the Democratic Party.
Today's Democratic Party believes that government has an important role to play in society. It fights against economic inequality. It advocates policies that battle racial and gender discrimination.
Okay.
But it wasn't always this way.
They
The Democratic
tried.
Party
Let me
was
take that. They
once the
tried.
party of white supremacy, supporting slavery and the Ku Klux Klan. To understand how
I'm
the party
good.
made such a huge shift, you have to go back to its origins in the mid-1820s, when it sprung up supporting the presidential candidacy of a popular former general, Andrew Jackson. Jackson was an outsider, challenging the political establishment and the elites of his day, and his critics disparaged him as a jackass. But Jackson embraced the animal as a symbol of determination, and donkeys started appearing in newspapers to represent him and his followers. In the 1828
That's
presidential
where that
election,
came
which saw
from.
record-breaking popular participation, Jackson won in a landslide victory. So his supporters argued that they, and not the old elites, represented the popular will of the country, and they started calling themselves the Democratic Party. Jackson's administration immediately began expelling Native Americans living east of the Mississippi River, an issue that defined the new administration. After he signed the Indian Removal Act into law in 1830, 5 large tribes were rounded up and forcibly marched into territory.
I laugh because there's nothing funny about this, but I laugh to emphasize the point that you guys, there's some of you don't mind nominating hate into a position of leadership. That's how destructive your brain works. I've been saying this for a long time. Boy, white dudes would rather tear the whole thing down than play fair. Oh my God. It's always something. It's always something. It's always someone coming after you. It's always something. It's always something. It's never your decision-making process. It's never your stunted mental evolution.
In camps further west. And the Democrats' ambitions didn't stop there. In the 1840s, the party adopted the doctrine of manifest destiny, the idea that Americans, white Americans, were divinely entitled to dominate the whole North American continent. Democratic President James K. Polk put this idea into action, massively expanding U.S. holdings by annexing Texas, acquiring Oregon, and winning much of what's now the southwestern U.S. in a war with Mexico. But soon afterward, national politics devolved into bitter controversy over whether new states entering the Union should be permitted to allow slavery. Democrats said they should, since their support base was strongest in slaveholding states.
Okay,
Yet
hang
a new
on.
Northern
I
Party,
need
the
to
Republican,
understand this because
the
there's another video where we took a look at the Confederate flag, and someone left a very long and I'm going to say meaningful message, meaningful to them on that video. So I'm trying to understand. Basically, I'm trying to understand how you can defend that point of view with the understanding that the other side has polluted our thought-making process by saying it's about slavery. And then people on that side are saying, no, it's about states' rights. And then here we are again having the same, it's obviously slavery is not as prevalent, but we're still fighting with states' rights and stuff like that. I happen to agree with the states' rights type of stuff. So I'm trying to understand this dynamic. And the reason why I believe in states' rights is I don't expect anyone from, and I've been talking shit about the South, and I'm really not trying to, I do that stuff to prove a point, but I don't let's say Minnesota. I don't expect anyone from Minnesota to understand what it's like to live in California. So, they shouldn't have a say over how we're running our state. I think what would be cool is if all the states ran under their own, thought process, whatever, and then the governors can try different programs, and whatever works filters up to the national level, right? But fighting and doing all this stuff is not getting us anywhere. If anything, it's making the rich people, the rich people that are trying to trick you out of your money, it's making it easier for them to trick you, instead of just letting people live however the hell they want to live. Each state can run however the hell they want. And then you just learn from the successes and the failures, and then you see. So yeah, anyway, all that to say, I'm trying to understand this point here, because I'm not 100% sure all of us understand the dynamic between those decisions, and people who fly the Confederate flags, not the dummies that poop in hallways, not those dummies. I'm talking about like the people that actually have the history, that have a certain bond with that way of life. I'm trying to understand it, and and hopefully this will help. Let's go.
Afterward, national politics devolved into bitter controversy over whether new states entering the Union should be permitted to allow slavery. Democrats said they should, since their support.
Okay, so since they were introducing new states, so let's bring it up to current culture, right? Let's say Greenland is okay with the way that they're running, and I don't know a lot of laws about Greenland or whatever, but let's say, for example, firearms are illegal in Greenland. Let's say that they're going to become the 51st state. What they're trying to say is, hey, Greenland, if you want firearms, here they come. And then Greenland is going to be like, whether or not they want firearms, So basically, I hope that makes sense. All of the new states that are being brought into the United States could have very easily made slavery legal, but the Democrats wanted it to be legal, and the Republicans said no. All right, here we go.
Base was strongest in slaveholding states. Yet a new Northern party, the Republicans, sprang up in opposition to expanding slavery any further. When Republican Abraham Lincoln won the presidency, the South seceded and the Civil War began. Once the Civil War was over, the Republican Party was bitterly unpopular among white Southerners who wanted to maintain supremacy over former slaves. So
this is the part that's hard to defend. And I've said this in the other Confederate flag video, if you have a really good example of a good video that explains this, please send it.
Party promised to limit federal government intervention on behalf of black citizens. Democrats became effectively the only political party in the South.
Take a look at this image. You guys have been doing this silly shit for a very long time. And then when we finally say, yo, stop, you guys get upset. Look at how you treat us in history. Look at.
By intimidation and suppression of black voters. Democrats also won on state and local levels, leading to the constant abuse of the rights of black citizens. As the 20th century began, the country was changing, and the Democratic Party was changing too. A handful of individuals and corporations had grown enormously rich and powerful, using their vast fortunes to influence politics. And as a reaction to this, some reformers began pushing an agenda of progressivism, arguing that the government should take more of a role in regulating big businesses and improving ordinary people's lives. At first, these progressive reformers were present in both parties. But it was Democrat Woodrow Wilson who won the presidency in 1912 and put much of this agenda into action over Republican resistance. So the Democratic Party became the main home for progressives, and the Republican Party became more
Okay.
the party of business. But it was the Great Depression of the 1930s that sealed the Democratic Party's new identity as the party of government activism. In an effort to combat the crippling economic situation, President Franklin Roosevelt signed what was then the largest package of domestic government projects in American history, calling it the New Deal. And in the process of doing this, his administration dramatically expanded the size of government. Yet the party was still split over race. By the mid-20th century, it contained Southerners who staunchly supported segregation, liberal reformers trying to end it, and many politicians who were just happy to look the other way. But in 1964, when the Senate voted on the Anti-Segregation Civil Rights Act, this shows how the progressive reformers in the party had gained the upper hand, steering the party away from its racist past towards equality and social justice. But the Democrats in the South voted against the Civil Rights Act, remaining wedded to the idea.
You'll hear plenty of stories on this channel.
Segregation. This chart shows the presidential vote for black voters. Around the 1960s, black voters who had already been moving towards the Democratic Party would begin overwhelmingly supporting the Democrats from then on, and conversely, the Republicans would take a huge hit among black voters. Meanwhile, white Southerners moved away from the Democratic Party they had been loyal to for so long, in part because of race, but also because of a suspicion of big government and a desire to defend traditional values against liberal activists. Democrats would go from dominating the South to losing almost all influence in the region. Thanks in part to this drop in popularity among white voters, Democrats started losing elections, often losing by huge margins. But demographically, the US is becoming an increasingly non-white country, and the Democrats have.
Yeah, but how much of that is influenced by all the gerrymandering and all the bullshittery that they do with the votes, you know? The things that they're doing these days is nothing compared to what they were doing back then. Back then, it was so easy to cheat on everything.
Comeback thanks in part to minority voters. The huge influx of Hispanic voters has especially benefited Democrats. These demographic shifts helped
Up until
the Democratic
lately.
Party, once the advocates of white supremacy and slavery, to elect the first black president in 2008, showing just how much the party had changed over the years. Yet it's not entirely clear where the future of the Democratic Party will lie. But as America becomes more diverse, it's likely that the Democratic Party's appeal among minorities will continue to be its strength into the future.
All right. That was interesting. It was a really good video. I still am interested in watching a video that that could describe better the I don't know, your thought process as far as the South and the Confederacy and stuff like that. I've heard some theories like, oh, the gentlemen and the ladies and all that stuff, you know, things are very crystal clear. A man is a man and a woman is a woman type of stuff. Science is teaching us that there's anomalies and not even anomalies, but at least we're on a spectrum. So you have to pay attention. You have to learn. You have to go to school. You have to do science. You have to do math. You have to do all the things that open up your mind to doing things a little bit better. I'm sure that there's some things back then, like a gentleman, that type of stuff. I'm down for that. But this bullshit about you guys taking days off and stuff, meanwhile, you got a bunch of colored people working your fields. Fuck off on that. No way in hell. Nope. So I'd love to see that video. Anyway, as far as this video goes, I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, share it with each and every one of your friends. And if you want to come hang out with me, watch videos while I work on creative projects, hit that subscribe button and then change the little bell icon so it says all. That way, every time I come out with something new, you'll be alerted. Don't forget to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some dope gear. And with that, I'm out.
Coconut Justice.